on that note, I want to call on Dr. Jonathan Osuswapo to please come and take the podium. A hand of applause for him as he comes up. Please be patient with him because I know he's always giving, doctoral, background to everything he does. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Master of Ceremony, the chairman, ably represented by the professor from Delta State University, Agbo. I wanted to follow some level of protocol because I know that His Excellency, the Governor of Delta State, has representation here. Even if it does not, I know that some senior advisor to the governors are here. Even the last speaker is also an advisor to the governor, or it's a secretary general to the executive secretary to the medium, micro, and all of that. Apart from that, I like to also acknowledge our president, chairman of council, though not here, but is the head of the Institute Charity of Bankers of Nigeria, Professor Pius Deji, Larewaju FCIB. I also want to acknowledge the Global Registrar, the Chief Executive Officer of CIBN, Akin Murakeyo, ACIB, and also our able chairman of Delta State branch of Charity of Bankers. Others I will still hang on the existing protocol. Thank you so very much. I am very excited to be invited into this occasion. Last 2 years, I think I was here. I was one of the co-discussants that sat there to talk about the papers that were presented by 3 different people. And I made some very excellent observation on the policies of central bank as it relates to both acting as monetary policy and fiscal policy in the affairs of running the central bank of Nigeria. I can remember that very well. Today, I'm invited as a guest speaker. I'm so excited. It's a privilege. I'm not going to take it for granted. I also want to appreciate the executive members or the ESCO of the CIBN Delta State chapter, led by the president, the chairman, Barrister Charles Ojakovo, who is my friend. We are very close. We worked together so many years ago, and we're still working together. Looking at the topic before us, like the keynote address I was giving is about micro, small, medium-scale enterprises and how the policies have evolved over the period by the central bank, the commercial banks, financial institutions, and of course, federal government, Grow Nigeria project have made impact in the performance of microfinance, micro, small, medium-scale enterprises in Nigeria. To evaluate all the performance of these policies, we need to take a little bit peep into the Nigeria economy. Where are we today? We need to look at the Nigeria economy, look at the macroeconomic indicators, things like inflation, growth rate, GDP, and all of that. And of course, it is also important that we should define some of the terms, the major terms that are used. Things like economic stability, things like economic growth, things like development. It is when we understand the component of all of that that we can really do justice to the topic. Let me equally commend the professor that represented the chairman of this occasion for the very big question that he posed before us. And luckily, this seminar seeks to also address part of it. Money as a store of value. That is why we say, for you to have a perfect store of value, we need to move from only consumption to production. We are going to address them during the course of this lecture. I'm rolling my slide myself, right? So that is the topic. Small businesses is the future of Nigeria. That's why we're talking about micro, small, medium-scale enterprises. And like I said, and you can see that the inflationary rate as of December 2023 is 21.47. The inflation in Nigeria, as it is not caused by, demand. You have what you call demand pull inflation. It's not caused by demand because the purchasing power of Nigeria is not strong. And so we don't have the capacity to make effective demand of some of the products within the economy. But the major problem is cost push inflation. Because most of the cost of production, the production inputs, are not available. For instance, energy. You will discover that people are running their own plants, consuming diesel, consuming fuel, and all petroleum derivatives to ensure that their businesses thrive. So if you take a critical analysis of businesses in Nigeria, you will discover that most of them, their cost is hinged on energy, which takes over 40% of the inputs for production. So the inflation rate in Nigeria is actually cost push. So anything that we can do to bring down the rate will be that there should be energy. Number one, I'm not going to waste too much time. You can see that food increase also is at 33.9%. These are historical data. They might not be very, very accurate. Again, some of the cost of food inflation in Nigeria is human-made. You can go to a typical shop in Asaba. You buy a bag of rice for maybe 130. You go to another one very far from Asaba. You are going to buy it for maybe 95,000, the same product. So it's human-made. We take opportunity of every situation in Nigeria because there's no price control. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Again, part of our problem is exchange rate problem. And of course, unemployment. Unemployment. Then, of course, high interest rates. Today, there's no commercial bank that can give you a loan less than 30% per annum. Then, of course, our growth rate has been a little bit steady, but most growth have been managed. So I do not rely on the data that are given for the GDP growth. But let me go further to explain our money market. You can see that from here, if you look at the blue line, it's talking of monetary policy rate. You can see that it is 29.9 or 33.88. Meanwhile, your headline inflation, which is within 20.26. So what is the margin of profit you can make from any business? That speaks to also the problem of money illusion. We are holding money, but the money have no value because the value has been taken away by inflation. So, in fact, when we hold money, we are illusion believing the fact that the money has purchasing power, but the power has been taken by inflation, which we call, real price in the market deflated by inflationary rates, which you can see the rate of inflation is so high. Then, looking at the physical performance from 2018 to 2023, there are so many variables. Like I told you, we'll not look at all, but from here you can see that the debt servicing burden is quite high. Nigeria economy is spending so much on debt burden. While the expenditure is increasing, we're getting more inflows into the federal government purse, but unfortunately, interest burden is weighing down the ability of the economy to perform. So many indicators. This is the real GDP growth rate for another country like Rwanda. You can see that they have 7.0, Ghana have 6.9, Kenya 4.6. Nigeria still have a GDP growth rate of 3.5 within the committee of these countries. Even South Africa has, it's supposed to be 6.3, please. I'll correct that. Then again, income. South Africa earned the highest per capita income. That is, looking at your total performance in terms of revenue in the country, deflated by the total number of population. You see that the capital income for Nigeria is 0.9 thousand. 0.9. That is what we earn. But look at South Africa, for instance, they are earning 6.4. You can see the state where we are. Other macroeconomic variables like indicators, you can see NPR rate is high, financial inclusion rate is equally high, Population growth rate is equally high. You can see from this slide. Then the other one too, I got this one from Central Bank, CIBN journal. Inputs are imported. They have foreign exchange rate, foreign exchange component. So we'll continue to be having it as an issue because we don't have the production capacity without importing the equipment that we use in production. So many years ago, let me just mention this, so many years ago in China, when you visit China, I think we discovered oil in Nigeria 2 years before China discovered oil. You will see that at that time in China, China can produce about 80% of their oil inputs. But Nigeria, we spend almost 99.9%. And that is why the local content policy was brought in by federal government, so that we can gradually pull out from importing every input. Unfortunately, we still believe in just working with the oil companies without going home with the knowledge. So up to date, we still import everything we use for our oil installation. Like the Christmas tree, the pipelines, and everything are still imported. But the essence of local content policy is that let us clarify the inputs into 4. Maybe zone A, B, C, D. Well, for local content, we must know how to do the basics. Maybe class D, class C, and class B. The other ones could be done by importing. But up till now, we've not learned. So foreign exchange will continue to be our problem until we're able to produce all that we need within the local economy. Let me run away to some of the economic indicators. Of course, balance of trade. You can see that we are exporting so much. We're not exporting so much, but this record was given by CIBN. I was going to verify it, but I just put it here. Export exceeded import by 7 trillion, which is not very correct. I will run away from it because I got it from CIBN journal. So, the problem of Nigeria remains that we have insecurity, things like banditry are kidnapping in the northwest, insurgency in the northeast, separatist agitation in the southeast, conflict between farmers and herdsmen everywhere, organized crime, looting and abduction for ransom, which of course we know. There's some of the economic issues we still have. Nigeria potential are constrained by inadequate infrastructure, tariff or non-tariff barrier to trade, obstacle to investment, lack of confidence in our currency, like our professor mentioned, limited foreign exchange capacity, and of course, religion and ethnic bigotry. I will talk about that. That one is where I'm going to close in my inflation. I've said something about inflation. It is hovering within 20 to 30%, like I said, and it's so high that even for food prices have risen by 35% from statistics. Then, of course, we still have things like poverty, examination malpractice even in universities, juvenile delinquencies, drug abuse, courtism, then crime prone. These are problems confronting us. Having said all of that, let me continue by saying that micro, small, medium-scale enterprises are a vital part of Nigerian economy, contributing in terms of employment, poverty reduction, and economic growth. They are considered as a backbone of every economy all over the world and responsible for generating employment. Like the Executive Secretary said, about 90% of employment is generated by MSME. Also, they contribute 46.32% to GDP, which has also been said, and also contribute 6.21% to export. That shows that it's very low. We are importing more than we export. So we need to do something deliberately to make sure that we export more than what we import. We will take all those as we do. So let me define a few terms. We talk about economic stability. Before then, people will be to wonder, what is MSME? Their classification. Micro enterprises are having employment of people employed there within 10, less than 10, and their asset base is less than 5 million. For small enterprises, 10 to 40 staff, 49 staff, and they have less than 50 million or thereabout. Then, of course, medium-scale enterprises have from 50 to 199. And, of course, they have a capacity or asset base of about 500 million. These are the classification of MSME. So when we're talking about MSME, we should look at the nature of business that form SME. Anything above 500 million, they fall within large-scale industries. Now, economic growth. You know, when we talk about growth, we're actually talking about the GDP is a proxy for growth, which is gross domestic product, deflated by price level. That is the real gross domestic product. And it's a combination of our consumption plus government expenditure plus investment minus export plus import. So you got export minus import. So you can see that import is a minus. It's a subtraction from our balance of payments position. So when we talk about production, we're talking about this is the real production, where you have the consumption. Of course, everybody consume. You agree with me that if your parents, you are with your parents, you consume, despite that you are not working. You consume. Are we together? So that consumption is what we call autonomous consumption. That is consumption without income, because your parents will still feed you. The old people in our economy equally consume. They are retired. They have no other means of income. They still consume. So they are dependents. They call their consumption is called autonomous consumption. So all of us will consume. Are we together? So consumption is a part of so the totality of consumption, investment, government expenditure, import, which are all positive, minus export, which is negative, makes what we call GDP, gross domestic product, deflated by the price level. That's why you remove inflationary tendency. You get your real GDP. So that is where I'm coming to, sir. That this is what we need to do. We must be active producing by working and sweating these variables to ensure that, our currency remains strong. How can it become strong? When you consume your locally produced goods, you are not importing. It's a plus for the economy. So all effort must be done to make sure that we don't import goods for consumption. It strengthens your currency, it reduces your import. And of course, at the end, it's a plus to your balance of payment position. I will run away, I'll explain that later. Economic stability. The only way our economy can be stable, economic resources, and of course, the citizen must improve their standard of living. And economy can only be stable when you have stable prices. I mentioned it here. When you have stable prices, low and stable inflationary rate, stable exchange rate, low level of unemployment in the economy, and financial stability. Investment and savings are high. We call it capital accumulation. They are high because no country grows, no country migrates to high masses without capital accumulation, which is by way of savings. So we must have enough to save, either in our balance of payment account or in our current account or your capital account. That will make sure that you have enough funds available in your foreign account, foreign deposit account. And that is the strength of your currency, because it is measured by either your good accumulation or your what do you call it now? Capital account. There should be enough reserves. That, so to speak, there must be enough reserve. If your reserves is high, then your currency can be strong, because currency are tied to reserve or gold. Are we together? So that is it. So we also have human capital development, which I think the Education Secretary mentioned, that we have to grow capacity. We have to train and retrain human capital, because they are the strength. Apart from the fact that you are talking of funding, human capital in terms of experience and technical know-how, they are all germane to the growth of every economy. And of course, environmental sustainability. Then, like I said, economic growth is an increase in production of economic goods and services compared from one period to the other, which I mentioned, or I proxy by using gross domestic product. Now, development. When we talk about development, these are measures of development. If you want to measure development, you look at things like life expectancy rate. How long do people live in Nigeria? You look at infant mortality rate, the sustainability of infants right from the day of birth, and also income per capita, which I mentioned in the previous slide, showing that Nigeria have very low income per capita. And of course, balance of payment, GNP, gross national product per capita, poverty rate, the health of Nigerians, look at the literacy rate, how many people are educated. Then, of course, the GDP, which I have mentioned before, the size of population, birth rate, income index, and so many other variables, unemployment rate, and so forth. These are measures of development. So if we are saying that Nigeria is developing, we must see an upward growth or gyration in these economic indicators or development indicators. As we go along, you are going to see some of the measure we'll speak to that. Then, of course, the Grow Nigerian project is like what government have been doing over time. Grow Nigerian project. They have been doing this over time. Nigerians have developed a lot of policies. Central Bank have developed a lot of policies. Federal government also have supported so many support initiatives to ensure the growth of MSME. And so the project is like the same thing, but they work together with SMIDAN, which is Small Medium Scale Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria. They work along with them to make sure that they pay some particular attention to digital innovation to boost the MSME development of competitiveness and resilience. They equally worked with SMIDAN to enhance local productivity capacity, which is what the Delta State chapter is doing. They are building a hub for textile or for fashion and design. That is one of the things I was going to recommend at the end of this lecture, because that's what happened in China and some other countries, in Japan. You're going to see the analysis there. Now, they also want to assist in diversifying import substitution to ensure that instead of importing some of these goods, they at least have a way of producing them locally. Today, most of the rice we eat now, they are Nigerian rice. Am I together? Wao rice, they said, is the best. Is that correct? Wao rice is the best, and it's Nigerian made. So gradually, they are trying to work together with Nigerians and other agencies to ensure that we reduce importation into the country, diversify the economic base to that of export rather than import. Then when all this work together, we are sure that the aim and objective of the Grow Nigeria project will be achieved. Okay? So I've said some of all this. They are advocating for things like developing the agricultural area, support the agriculture, youth and women empowerment, like he mentioned, provide training, mentorship, and funding to youth and women-led businesses, which is what the Delta State chapter is doing. Very great work. Put your hands together for them. It's a good initiative. So the key stakeholder to the Grow Nigeria project is actually the federal government, state government, which Delta State has started, and of course, private sector and organizations. Then, of course, developmental agencies, including World Bank, International Financial Institute, African Development Bank, and in fact, civil society. They are all stakeholders. So it's not going to be a thing that is left for only federal government or state government. Even private sector will play some very critical role in also supporting the Grow Nigeria project. Now, over time, we are going to chronicle a lot of things that the central bank have done, the federal government have done, and other policy initiatives that have been done in Nigeria from 2000 to date in trying to support MSME growth. At least at the end, the purpose is to achieve economic growth, economic stability, and economic development. So these are some of the programs. I will rush through them because the Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Development Fund was generated in 2013 with a 220 billion fund to provide affordable credit to the MSMEs. Then also, 2017, the Small and Medium Enterprise Credit Guarantee Scheme was launched in 2017. And the purpose is also to support and give coverage to MSME loans. It's a form of guarantee, provide guarantee so that they can have access to loan to finance their enterprise. Then also, 2015, all of us are aware that the Accord Borrowing Program was also an initiative of the government and CIBN to support farmers in agribusinesses. Going further, in 2017, the Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprise Investment Scheme was also established. At least the purpose is to also support the agricultural sector because it's one of the very critical and powerful sectors that can lead growth in Nigeria. Again, National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy was done, we call it NEET, in 2004 to support MSME development. I can begin to count some of the projects on and on that governments over time have done. For instance, the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme was introduced in 2009 to provide funding for commercial agricultural projects. You know, microfinance policy, of course, was also launched in 2005 to also support the less privileged in the society, those who have no access to finance, the bottom of the pyramid, the active poor. Because at that time, you know, the commercial banks were trying to go do rural banking, which failed because of the cost element. So they were unable to reach the bottom ladder of the active poor. So the microfinance policy was launched in 2005 to go to the villages, to go to the grassroots, and impact, we call it financial inclusion, impact on the very, very low, poor, active poor. And so on and so forth. I have over 30 or 35 lists of what government, central bank, and other financial institutions have done, even Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, have done to support the growth of MSME in Nigeria. But I want to give you some specific projects that are worthy of note from CBN between 2000 and 2024. In 2000 to 2025, the CBN established the Small Medium Development Agency, which I mentioned before, SMIDAN, to promote MSME development. During this period, CBN also launched the microfinance bank framework, which I talked about. Then, 2006 to 2010, Central Bank introduced the Agricultural Credit Scheme. These are things I have mentioned before, so let me not repeat them. There are specific projects that we can pinpoint, and their volumes, the volume that it contributed to the growth of MSME in Nigeria. Then, of course, this is very new. In Nigeria incentive-based risk-sharing system for agriculture, they call it NISA, was inaugurated by Central Bank. In fact, this is a bank inside a bank. Because what Central Bank tried to do is that they form a microfinance bank inside Central Bank to disburse some of the funds. They said they want to promote agricultural lending, manage credit risk, provide incentive for lenders, and also increase agricultural productivity, improve food security, enhance economic growth, and all of that. We'll look at the drawback of this, because if I ask you, all of you here, do you know of anybody that benefited from this project? You may not know. We're going to discuss all that. There are so many drawbacks to some of these projects. Financial institutions also play their various roles by giving loans, giving overdrafts, advances to MSME in Nigeria, and of course, other notable initiatives that have been done in Nigeria. You know, federal government too on its own have done things like National Industrial Revolution Plan, Agricultural Promotion Policy, Nigeria Vision 2020, which is still fresh in our mind, Presidential Enabling Business Environment, and other programs and projects or policies, framework that have been done by both Central Bank, financial institutions, federal government, Bank of other initiatives like Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industries, and that. I have mentioned the critical role of a microfinance bank in empowering economic growth. They eradicate poverty and also involve in financial inclusion. They also finance SMEs in Nigeria. That's one of the critical roles they have done. But let us go back to China. What strategy did China actually adopt in getting their MSME right? I just communicate a few, but let me just mention only one or two from this slide. You see, number two, they created special economic zones. Special economic zones. In China, they created these zones to attract foreign investment, technology, and expertise. Of course, that was very, very important. Then also, they provided regulatory support to every MSME. And also, they created what you call infrastructural development. They invested heavily in infrastructure. Today, if you want to leave Asaba to Benin through road, there's a problem. Because when you get to very close to Agbo houses, you cannot cross. So if you carry a trailer of food, either the tea capside or they may get bad due to the cost of transporting. Even from Warri houses to Benin, the same problem. But here in China, they were very deliberate in providing infrastructure for the development of MSME. I think if we do that in Nigeria, it's going to assist us a lot. Those are some of the cardinal. In Japan, Japan equally created special support for industry, for MSME, research, development. They made sure that they give support and also created infrastructure heavily. Government supported, they provide subsidies for MSMEs. They gave tax incentives to MSME and fund them heavily in China. That is their success story. We have, what is the similarity between the two? One, infrastructure development, then human capital development. This was seriously done in China and Japan. And also, very, very important, because when the Education Secretary was talking, he talked about people doing feasibility study. You don't just bring business in because you want to do business. You hear that people are, manufacturing akamu. So you just quickly go and manufacture because you think they are making money. When there is no study, there are so many factors you use in citing industry. Those were not studied. You didn't look at the economic viability, the financial plan, not done. So, but here, they ensure that they are involved in innovation, research, and development. Both encourage innovation and research development, both in China and, of course, in Japan. It is very, very critical for us, policymakers, to look at this. Because we cannot just deliberately say, go and do or open your, or want to develop capacity without training them on how to do research. Research into your industry, look at the do's and the don'ts of industry so that you can prosper. You call it risk management. You also need to look at the risk component within the universe of the risk universe to ensure that you are able to mitigate all available risk. It is very, very important. These are very, very critical areas. And so government agencies should help in ensuring that these people that we're developing the capacity for, they have the research prowess. They know what to do good research, to do good feasibility study, and of course, they be given financial literacy and account management skill to ensure that their business survive. We should not do business like in the old, when you say, if you look at my stock, still now, goods they stock, that's your profit. It's not possible. You must be accountable. Very, very important. Other countries within the region have implemented MSME policies, and they have been successful. In Rwanda, in Kenya, in South Africa, in Ghana, and even in Tanzania. Some of them have done some of the policies, and they have been successful. So generally, Africa has over 600,000 formal SMEs and 40 million plus micro businesses. That is from statistics. So African workforce in MSME employ about 80%, like I said there. And of course, they contribute to African GDP by about 40% on the average. You can see that. So despite their significance, according to the World Bank Enterprise Survey, about 40% of MSME in sub-Saharan Africa cite access to finance as a significant constraint, of course we know, compared to 25% of large firms. Additionally, 41% of MSME in less developed countries report financing as equally a problem. So, and that is why we are here, to look at what are the bottlenecks. Why can't they access finance? He has spoken a little bit about it, but we amplify as we go on. Why can't we access finance? You see, some states within this country, I'm showing you that their percentage of contribution to SME as stated here, like Nabia, MSME contribute about 2.1% to their GDP. And so on and so forth. The states are listed, we will not waste time on all that. We will go straight to what are the major factors that led to the growth of MSME in China. That I have mentioned that, I will skip that. And the strategy, I will skip that. Now, to bridge the gap, Nigeria can learn from China and Japan's experience. We can learn a lot. I just mentioned a few. Implement policies that support MSME growth, like Nigeria can establish policies and provide financial support, training, and infrastructure development for MSME. I think I've mentioned some of all those things. I've passed this slide. Then, we need to evaluate the impact of all these policies that I've mentioned. What is their impact actually on MSME in Nigeria? And we can only get the evaluation properly if we look at, do they have improved access to credit? Did it cause increase in employment opportunities? Are people getting more jobs through these initiatives? Then, of course, does these policies, have they actually enhanced economic growth? Then, is there any development in the manufacturing sector? Have we have an increase in manufacturing concern in Nigeria? Then does it reduce poverty? Does it improve financial inclusion? It's when we look at some of all these that we can actually look at the impact. But generally, if we have enough statistics, we'll have done what we call probit and logic analysis by getting data, enough data to look at their impact one by one on each sector. But here we're going to use a little bit of descriptive statistics, maybe graphs and tables, to show some of the impact that we have been able to get from research and journals. Now, if you look at this slide, you see crude versus non-crude oil export, their contribution to that. Non-crude oil, because Nigeria will export everything. We import everything. The major thing we export is oil. The remaining one, the oil make over 80% of our export. This is so crude oil remain our major export product. So until we're able to actually cure this problem, that we play less emphasis on the crude oil, which is a wasting asset, because one day it will dry up. And if we don't start it now, it may be too late. We should not be caught napping. So we need to work on other products that can give us our inflow into the country. So if you look at growth of MSME in Nigeria from 2000 to 2024 as a percentage of GDP, you can look at it. The growth was between 45 to 48%. From 2000 to 2013, it grew by at least maximum 48%. 2013 to 2017, it grew by maximum 50%. Then, of course, 2017 to date, it grew by 46.50. It dropped because of COVID impact. A lot of firms lost out of the business arena due to COVID. They are trying to wake up. That's why there's a little drop. But you can see that it has been hovering around 50%, and we expect it should grow more than that. So which means it contributed meaningfully to the growth of MSME in Nigeria with the policies initiative. Then, if you look at amount of intervention fund budgeted by Central Bank and MSME and the amount they disbursed between 2000 to 2004, you can say it was substantial. For instance, at a point, they supported MSME by 75 billion. Federal government raised MSME intervention fund of 75 billion, and it was totally disbursed. If you look at the potential conditional grant scheme, they also disbursed 50 billion as it was budgeted. If you look at Federal Government Manufacturing Sector Fund, they also budgeted 75 billion and they equally disbursed all. Then again, MSME Development Fund, they budgeted 200 billion and they were all disbursed. Then of course, like I said, NASA budgeted 500 billion and I think they disbursed very close to that. But the beneficiaries we do not know. We'll look at those problems of these policies, how they impact. Bank of Industry also did some disbursement, and of course they created 9,050,796 jobs through those disbursements. Now, let us look at the percentage growth rate of MSME as compared to GDP. You can see that there has been steady growth rate on the side declining in 2021. Of course, like we all know that the impact of the decline because of those COVID issues are related black swan that impacted the whole world. But I think with time, with the new policy initiative, I'm sure we'll pick up. Look at their growth rate, their contribution to gross domestic product. And so on and so forth. This is the same thing analysis. The sectoral classification. Which sector did this fund impact? You can see that they impacted on agriculture, about 30% in 2020. Manufacturing also was impacted by 10%. Services. When I say services, I'm talking about things like retail businesses, hospitality, transportation, and so on and so forth, was the most impacted. Most of the time we believe in trade. So those retail businesses were seriously impacted. In fact, that's where the microfinance bank are playing very big. They give small loan to traders and so on and so forth. Those that go to, what do you call them? To where you buy the women clothes. What do you call it now? You call the name that time, Yes, they impact on trade so much. Then of other sectors, equally like services, we also impacted on. Then, that's just the bar chart. This is the growth rate of SME in Nigeria. You can look at the growth from 2000 to 2004. You can see that it is upward, gyrating upward. There's upward growth in the sector. Of course, I will tell you that private financial initiative also contributed to the growth of MSME in Nigeria. Look at the sector they parted on, like trade and commerce. That one shown by the first the first boss before the manufacturing, before agriculture. Rather, the large chunk of the contribution is on trade and commerce, like I mentioned before. You know. Now, in spite of all this, we cannot say that the project has, or the program or policies have had 100% impact in the MSME in Nigeria. There are still areas to be addressed. There are still problems to be discussed. There are still solutions to be provided. And so we look at this as some of the challenges. They see that some of the loans we give as banks, commercial banks, Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industry, and like the prof said, it will be easy for us to walk to the school and say, let us discuss, we want to fund your project, initiative, and the rest. What about the risk? See, some of the loans, they carry high risk. Nigerians need to have character. Most Nigerians don't have character. Nigerians need to have strong database for finance. Although we know that we have credit bureau nowadays that can track loan defaulters, but it's not strong enough because if you are staying in Asaba and you migrate to Sapele, nobody can trace you. It's very, very difficult. So issue of character is very, very important. We need to develop very strong capacity, we need to develop very strong character, and of course, recovery behavior of the country in terms of judiciary assistance. You see, if you take a typical defaulter to the court, you cannot get your money, particularly if police is involved. You'll be to spend money, the person will be spend money at the end, the matter will be buried. So we need to develop a very strong recovery methodology to ensure that we are able to walk into the school, give loan to the school, and we'll go and sleep, so your money can be recovered. These are some of the problems that are confronting ability of MSME to actually, give out more funds more than they have done. Then I must talk about this issue of corruption among program implementers. You see, if I ask questions till tomorrow, if I tell you to go and make a research, that did any of your relation or any of your customer benefit from some of these programs? No. These programs were done with some high element of corruption, were given to families, friends, those who know who, and the rest. So even those that don't even need it, they were given, and so they did not implement the part of the policy, and it cannot in any way impact on the growth. Try to make everything politics. Everything in Nigeria, we put political element into it, and that is killing us. Lack of program transparency, like I said. Then, of course, you know that collateral has been a problem. Everybody cannot get collateral to confront some of the funds and meet the conditions that are given for these programs for you to receive funds. Insufficient knowledge of the applicants, those who are applying for this loan, they don't even have knowledge. Like my able executive secretary said, some of them don't even have feasibility study. So after all, what are they going to do with that? There's some of them were not eligible. When we look at them, you can say 40% of the people who applied were not eligible. Then, like you said, poor business plan and knowledge, about 22% of them. The inadequate record keeping, 21% of them. The managerial related issues, 70%. You see, these are things that have led to this program not getting to desired goal. This is just a badge to show the challenges. If you look at it, many people said that access to funds is a problem. And of course, electricity is a problem. Corruption is a problem. Tax rates are high. In Nigeria, they are not bothered about giving tax rebate to small, medium-scale enterprises to thrive. They see go around and even charge you devil in addition to the tax. It's a problem. We need to address it. We need to create an enabling environment for this country, for this industry to grow. Create the environment for them to grow. But rather, you see touts coming every day to come and collect the little profit they would have otherwise made. Apart from that, government will also come with their tax problems and ensure that some of them are even taken to court with the hope of closing them. So people who do not have the enabling environment, if we must do well, government must support this MSME to grow by making sure that they are giving some tax rebates. They also create enabling environment, provide electricity, and of course, make transportation available. There political stability, where we can say that we can have easy access to funding, either locally or foreign funding. And again, custom and trade restriction are a problem. If you import a little item, the way you are going to pay demurrage in the ports is another thing to talk about. Talk of when you are able to move them from a port to to your destination. They are all problems that are affecting us. You see, I want to say this, and this is one of the problems too we have, and because I know that we have a lot of policy makers, governments, officials here, I want to say this. You know, if you look at Nigeria by its structure, you see that you look at the mangrove swamp forest, you look at the southern Guinea savanna, and all those vegetation within Nigeria, they produce something. Either they are producing agricultural products, some are dairy products, like cows and the rest, or one thing or the other, mining, tin, and the rest. If you go to the southeast part of this country, you are going to see those who have technical know-how. They can produce anything. They can mimic anything. And one of the things I forgot to mention, the success of the China, the Japan, is because they believe in made in China product. They believe in made in Japan product. If I give you a single handkerchief, you're going to say that it's made in China. Everything is made in China. And they believed in it. So we must look at how we can come together as a country and believe in made in Nigerian product. We must believe in that if MSME must grow and create a market, a large market for our products, and make sure that we patronize this product. In Asaba here, we used to have textile mill, textile industry in this town. It has died. I was just thinking aloud. I said, what about if the governor say, you know what, all civil servants in Asaba or in Delta State on Friday, you must wear made in Asaba textile made cloth, native. Either you tie wrapper or you to sew anything you like. And every civil servant must wear it. The company will come up again. They will have patronage and there will be growth. So we must be deliberate in patronizing made in Nigerian products. You see, so our colonial master that amalgamated us in 1914, saw this vision. They look at the vegetation of Nigeria, very robust vegetation. If you look at the mangrove swamp forest, they are products that they produce, and so on and so forth. They looked at it that both the north, both the east, both the west and the south, with the product they have, they can sustain the existence of Nigeria. But the only thing we have as a problem is we politicize everything. The north does not believe in the south. The east does not believe in the west, and so on and so forth. So let me just talk about this. We have the problem of religion, which I mentioned at the beginning, that religious bigotry and ethnicity are major problems that are killing us. Let me say it. The only way we can move the country forward is to downplay ethnicity and religion, as these are the forces that repel us as centrifugal forces. If you are a science student, instead, we need a centripetal force to pull us together. From the map, you can see, we could see that around the Atlantic coast, you have marine resources around the Atlantic coast called the blue economy. A lot of industries can grow out of the blue economy. The mangrove forest, the rainforest, Guinea savanna, Sudan, and Sahel, the colonial master envisioned that we could pull all the resources from these areas together to support development. Unfortunately, what ought to be an advantage to Nigerians has become a disadvantage to all of us. We believe so much in religion and ethnicity. If we are a little bit close the gap between all this, or do away with these gaps, I think that we can work together to achieve a very good result. We need to midwife a new process to look at school academic, curriculum. Because if you look at what the Chinese are doing, they start from the primary school. The children start learning skills, small skills. And before they get to the secondary education, they will have developed very strong capacity. And they might decide to end there because they have been well developed. They move further. Let me give you another example with what's happened in Nigeria, like in the East. The East, you believe in an apprenticeship. What they do in the East, apprenticeship. Finish, know how to write your name and write your figures. You are given to a master to train. At the end of the day, you serve the master, you understand the business, you understand the risk of the business. You can raise this business without any further support. You have been given the managerial capacity and everything that you need to know. At the end, the master will give you some money to go and establish your own. That's what we call venture capitalists. So they provide experience, they provide knowledge, at the end, provide capital for you to start up businesses. We can replicate this as a curriculum in the universities or in the schools. Let's start from the primary schools to develop little carpentry abilities, little, fixing of knots in boat, knot and bolt, and things like that. We can start somehow. if we develop this curriculum, I'm very sure that we will develop the apprenticeship system of training that goes along with education. We will be a great nation if we can follow this. Then, most of the programs that are developed, most of them, or some of them, were tailored towards a wrong market structure. I talked about this before now. Wrong market structure. You know, in the market structure, you have what you call monopoly. You have duopoly. You have oligopoly. You have perfect competition. That's one of the things you have within the market structure. And anytime we make the mistake of trying to fund more of a monopolist, we are building a monster. A monster in the sense that, I'll give you an example, like Dangote is the one in charge of cement, Dangote is the one in charge of sugar, that is a monster. At the end of the day, there will be no price, they will dictate the price. If you grow up, if you try to fund an oligopolist, where you have some few companies coming together as the major giants in the country, and you are funding them so much, you are providing this incentive for them so much, at the detriment of this critical mass, at the end, they will form what you call cartel. The companies will come together and form cartel, and so they will be to dictate the pace of the economy. These are some of the problems we have with inflation in Nigeria. Because we have so many big companies that have developed monopolistic tendencies. We have so many big companies that all equally develop that duopoly tendencies, that they form a cartel or they dictate the price. But if these programs are actually tailored towards a perfect competitive firms, is that everybody, there will be competition, there will be efficiency, and there will be price reduction. That is the way to. So if you look at the project, the projects were disbursed, the funds were disbursed to the very big companies in those market structure, and so they will not become effective. It's another problem we have. So policymakers should try and look at the nature of funding and who they are disbursing these funds to. I made this comment here, very, very important, and that there must be synergy between the federal government, the state, and local government in trying to see how they can create a farm settlement. It's one of the hubs you've told me now, sir. You talk about the hub that is being developed by Delta State. Look beyond that hub and let us bring together all the industry we try to project. Let's sit in our budget office or a planning office and sit down and look at how can we project the growth of various sectors of this economy within our state or within the nation. Do a budget for it. By the time you do the budget, bust all of them to a place, like a hub. Create a farm settlement where you start from the agricultural product, the inputs, you create a manufacturing input, create export area, and they will be to export. Let it move in along that line. Let the people lease the equipment. Government provide the equipment, let them lease the equipment. Give them training, I don't know how. Give them the support. You will discover that if it is done with a minimum of 5,000 hectares or 10,000 acres, sorry, it's not acre, it's supposed to be hectare, I'll correct that, hectares in every local government in Nigeria. Nigeria will know no hunger, they will know no pains, Nigeria will improve and develop, and in fact, Nigeria will reduce their importation and bring this East people to be to do little manufacturing of equipment and all of that. They can do if they are given support. I've seen people who have done a lot of equipment from the East. They can do if government support them. It is very, very critical. So we need to create that awareness within the state, local government and the state. They can work together. Above all, energy should be provided. I do not know why, under the dispensation, that we cannot provide energy within our state. Because the laws of energy have been reduced, that people cannot develop their own power, independent power. Yes, states can develop their independent power and provide energy. In fact, the state that will do it, I think I learned that Abia is doing something like that, but I think they don't have enough coverage. But if Abia today is able to cover the whole state, they're going to see that Abia will be the new Japan or the new China. I tell you, it's very important. So let Delta State start that as a project initiative. Many industry will come. In fact, at the point when I was in China, I tried to talk to the man. I went for a project there. I told him, say, come to Nigeria. They cannot come because there's no energy in Nigeria. And like I told you, it's one of the very high cost in production of goods and services in Nigeria. So the state, every state should look at how they can provide energy for their people. Thank God the gas turbines are working. We have enough gas that were flaring in Nigeria. They can be converted to energize our gas turbines within the country. Like I said, provide export units in those farm settlements, and of course, create central markets, build social infrastructure, and of course, the country will develop automatically. I said here that, if you look at a critical appraisal of this project, MSME project, and the funding structure, the policies initiative, you discover that they did not actually impact on every sector. Some of them were funded through personal loans. Some of them through family contribution or intervention funding. But it's equally critical because for those of us who work, if you want to build Nigeria, like I said, you don't leave it for only the governor or the president of the country. You can be a part of it. The moment you have your paycheck where you're working, you start thinking of something. How do I develop? Because even if you work till you retire, either you retire or one day you will leave your work, they will sack you. Or maybe they will tell you to resign, or something must make you to leave. Either you retire, but when you retire, what do? Pension will not be enough for you to feed yourself and the family because of the inflationary rate, very high. So you need to think of something now that you have a paycheck. Try to practice capital accumulation, which starts by savings. After savings, think of how to invest in an MSME. You will employ others. Wealth creation comes from MSME. You must have that mentality. If all of us build it in us, we are going to open our own and employ people. It is very, very important. So most of the projects actually that have made GDP to grow and other macroeconomic indicators to grow were not actually done by only the funding, but personal contribution. Families, personal savings, all contributed to the growth of MSME in Nigeria. Well, there are other further recommendations, but I think that the safest route to poverty alleviation is MSME, the future of Nigeria. And it is by entrepreneurial mentality that we create, which is what I've said, that will make us to get powerful results, to grow MSME further as it were. The mentality of entrepreneur, like I said, is you think of solving problems within the domestic and foreign economy. Think of solving a problem. When you have the mentality of solving a problem, we are very close to, alleviating poverty in our land. And it should be a continuous improvement on that. The process of creating idea, creativity, having your vision, growth, inspiration, and all that, they are all key to, MSME growth. Well, I've said this, so I don't want to take you too further. I want to conclude by saying that Nigerians, let us think. They're going to help us to grow MSME. Thank you very much.